A slightly different one for today. Is this the Don? I'm not sure. I don't know why. Oh, that's blocked off. We've been down here before, as Marley and I. Marley? Good boy. As this is the way to get to the back of one of our diddy local cemeteries. I might check on the map in a minute. I'm fairly sure that's the Don. Rather unpleasantly, my left foot is becoming increasingly unwalk-onable, particularly the outside two toes. So these two on the foot. I've tried strapping them up, but and taking some more painkillers, but crumbs. They don't half sting. I think. Do you know, I'm not sure. Let's have a look up here. I don't know what that is there. I suspect that's an old door post, if you don't know what I mean. We've a couple at the boathouse. Yes, we have found the cemetery. Those things are leaning over. What I was looking at when I said, I wonder if this is the cemetery, are gravestones. So it's the cemetery. And just on the other side of this wall should be one of the big pig graffitis. Okay. Fair enough. I can't remember what this cemetery is. Again, it's just off Attercliffe Road, not far from the post office. Come on, you. And it's a beautifully quiet little haven, so it is. Anyway, right. I think the painkillers are definitely having an impact on my cognitive thought processes, you know. Right, so today is it the 21st today? Let's have a look. It's the 21st of January, 3:15, and I've done 1,129 steps, which is actually pretty good, considering that most of the day I've been wondering whether or not amputating these toes. I wouldn't do it. We do know someone called Nigel who he's diabetic too, but he had a real problem and ended up chopping one of his toes off, and now I think he's had lower leg amputated. So, but mine isn't associated with the the diabetes. I have no signs of a peripheral neuropathy, which is kind of like one of the concerns with diabetes. Right, Pickles. And mine's purely osteoarthritis, the deformity of the toes. And I think what happened, I won't keep going over this, but because the joints in the toes have basically just eroded, very similar to the ones in the fingers. Because there's no joints, the bits of bone that would normally move as a part of a joint are either fused and then keep breaking, or in a permanent state of brokenness. I might possibly be inventing some of these terms up as I go along. Marley, this way. So yeah, 21st. So we're only, well, we're not even 24 hours into the new Trump version 2 presidency in America, and he's declared war on diversity and inclusion. He's, Marley, this way, set free 1,500 of the people, the January the 6th insurgents, who, oh crikey, I don't even want to think about it. It's a little bit like, you know, there's been quite a few people in the UK sentenced following the riots. By the way, the chap who murdered those 3 little girls, the only redeeming feature in his worthless little life is that he changed his plea to guilty yesterday, which, and I say the only redeeming feature in his worthless little life, as what that means is that the families of those 3 girls and the other girls who were injured will be spared having to hear all of the truly harrowing accounts when they come up in court. I can imagine fewer things worse when you've had your little girl murdered, to then have to hear it all discussed again in great gory detail in a court. It's horrible, horrendous, truly horrendous. Are you coming up? No, look, the stairs here, stupid. Oh, you're an idiot. But you're my idiot. Yeah, so he pleaded guilty. And then this morning, Keir the Starmer had a press conference where he said, yeah, of course I knew everything, but I couldn't say anything. And I have to admit, I sort of agree. I kind of hate being in a position of sort of standing up for Starmer, but I do agree with him on this particular issue. So look at that. Isn't that a lovely, an unusual, and unusual lovely tree? I'm coming. So this cemetery, oh, it's just lovely in the summer. People don't really know it's here. You drive quickly past it and you don't realise, but it is lovely. It's beautiful. Oh dear. Sorry. Marketing call. That's unusual for you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Starmer. Yeah, I kind of like understand and agree. And of course now there will be an inquiry into how he slipped through so many of the nets that are supposed to catch people like that. And he said, you know, we're no longer dealing with just organisations like Al-Qaeda, Islamic State. When I was younger, it's the IRA, but we're no longer dealing with them. We're dealing with lone freaks and nut jobs, which I thought was exactly who Dominic Cummings was attempting to recruit all those years ago. Maybe wrong. Sorry, Marley, have I caught you pissing on someone's grave? No, it's not. I think the grave's this side. So you're pissing behind someone's grave. That's not quite as bad and disrespectful, Marley. You won't be condemned to the fires of hell, I'm sure. So yeah. But how do you keep track of all these potential nut jobs? It's impossible. And I think Starmer, that is, made the observation that a lot of these nut jobs are all buoyed up on stuff that they see online, and it's the same as the far right. And I've been trying to stop saying things like the far right, because I think the far right and the far left are both equally as dangerous. But I think the Overton window has shifted such that we no longer have a left, really. What used to be the left is now centrist, and what used to be the right is now so fucking obscenely extreme that if you're not frightened, you're not paying enough attention. But anyway, so Keir the Starmer is launching an inquiry. That's another thing that really pisses me off. Do you remember recently people up in arms demanding there be another inquiry into the grooming gangs, the rape gangs as they're now being called? So they're all terribly concerned at how children were groomed. And yes, we should be. We should be very concerned at how these children were groomed. But we've had an inquiry, and the Conservatives accepted 22, or I think 18 of the 22 recommendations, and then didn't do anything about those recommendations. But then everyone's blaming Starmer. Again, now, I'm no fan of Starmer. Far from it. I have very little time for him. That doesn't stop me feeling a bit sorry for him, because he said, look, we could have another inquiry and kick it into the long grass, a little bit like they've done with social care. They've kicked that into the long grass, never to be seen again. Marley, this way, mate. Come on. Because they know that nobody is ever going to be able to afford to pay for social care. We can't even pay for normal care. The NHS is on its knees, especially after 14 years of Tory decline. So I can't agree that, good boy, that we don't need another inquiry. But all these people saying, oh well, typical, because Starmer doesn't want an inquiry because it will lay the blame squarely at the door of Labour councillors. Only a couple of problems with that. is that it's all councils were grossly negligent. And it was a difficult situation because they will claim that a lot of these girls were consenting and it was a lifestyle choice. And the reality is it can seem that way until you factor one simple thing into that equation, and that is the fact that they were underage. However you look at it, underage girls and boys, but underage means children. Children cannot give consent in the way that we understand consent. It's impossible, and that's what it rests on. They were groomed. But then if you want to extrapolate that argument, which I think is quite reasonable to do so, you would have to say that Shamima Begum and her, I think, 3 schoolgirl friends who fled via Turkey to join the Islamic State, they were children. They couldn't give consent. They were groomed. But it doesn't fit the dominant narrative to accept that they were groomed. Wait, where are you going? Come on, let's go this way. Yeah, we'll go around the block one more time until the last lot of codeine wears off and the rather strong herbal prescribed painkiller wears off, which I can feel it starting to. So we haven't got long, we might as well make the most of it. So yes, coming back to the orange shitgibbon himself, Donald J. Trump, he's released 1,500 of the treasonous insurgents. And it's very similar. It would be like us releasing all the people who were imprisoned following the riots after those 3 little girls were murdered brutally, savagely, just terrible. It's exactly the same as releasing them who tried to set light to a hotel in Rotherham. And 2 things, come on darling, that come to my mind when I see social media posts, people posting about that. One is people are too thick to understand the difference between inquiry and enquiry. Can't do it. It's beyond their thinking power. It's outside of their realm. And the other thing that really saddens me more than anything else is the willingness to accept without question far right rhetoric which is delivered to them on a plate. And I'm reminded very much of my dearly deceased very good friend Packy Pete, and that was his term and our term. Packy Pete, his parents were both, I suppose you'd call them humanists, teachers, and they were in a part of the world that was then split up into Bangladesh, India and Pakistan, and they ended up in a bit, well, it's kind of like they were sort of like in a bit of no man's land, but mainly Pakistan. They were teachers. They used to teach in a school. They were English. It's worth bearing in mind. White English. And Packy Pete was born in Pakistan. Now, he used to speak fluent, I'm fairly sure it was Urdu, might not have been, but I'm fairly sure it was. And I'll describe Pete to you. Pete was about 6'2", 6'3". His shoulders were probably about as wide as that gravestone. He was a big bloke, was Pete. And from a very early age, he'd suffered from male pattern baldness. He was, to all intents and purposes, the perfect skinhead. And he used to love playing on that. At the time, it used to be the National Front and the British Nationalist Party, BNP. I suppose later that became the EDL, Tommy Robinson's favourite little group of cuntish thugs. But when people like the BNP had a little stall outside Sheffield Town Hall handing out their leaflets, not many people would go up to them, thankfully. But Pete used to have it. He used to love going up. And he'd pick a few of the leaflets up. And because he looked the business, they thought they'd found a kindred spirit. And he'd have little chats with them. But you see, Pete knew that these people were of a group known as the hard of thinking. They're unable to think for themselves. They just regurgitate. Ouch. Nearly went then. Foot nearly gave away. They just regurgitate the mantra which they've heard people like Tommy Robinson and all those other wankers spout. And so they regurgitate rather than thinking. They don't involve themselves in a discussion or a dialogue. It's merely a repetition. And Pete knew this, and Pete would eventually be given the opportunity to ask the money shot question of, well, what should we do with all these packies then? To which they would always reply, oh, we should deport them, we should send them home, send them back where they came from. And Pete would then, a little gift to him was that he would then move in for the kill. He'd stoop and move his face to within inches of their face and say, but I like it here. He didn't actually have a Cockney accent, did Pete, but it doesn't matter. But I like it here. I don't want to go back to Pakistan. And that was like 3 lots of cherries lining up on a fruit machine. Yes, jackpot. Because they wouldn't know how to deal with it. They'd be completely and utterly speechless. What? Some of those encounters didn't end well. Usually, other people on the stall where they was handing out the leaflets would suddenly find it necessary to be somewhere else. Because cowardice comes along with the braces and the Union flag for these people. And they'd leave that one poor person there with Pete. Pete was a gentle man until he met such fuckwits. And I once saw him very gently place his hand round someone's throat and lift them into the air and ask them to explain themselves before releasing them, letting them drop to the floor, only a few feet, but then running as if their life depended on it. Pete died about 10 years ago. With Marley, all right, we'll go back. With Marley's predecessor, Max, I used to walk Max around a little park near where I live called Mount Pleasant Park. And there's always a group of young Asian lads, buoying each other up and saying things. And occasionally they say odd things unknown to me. And Pete would let them carry on before going over And whatever he said to them in, I'm fairly sure it's Urdu, one of those, whatever he said to them had the effect on them that it had on the BNP type and National Front type supporters, in that those young wannabe gangster ragamuffins suddenly decided it was probably better to be somewhere other than Mount Pleasant Park. So we used to have a fair amount of fun. He never really willingly hurt anyone. I think that was a characteristic that he learnt from his parents. I always thought there was something like Quakers or something, but I'm not sure why I thought that. Might have been something I dreamt. But anyway, yes, so that was Packy Pete. So Trump has released 1,500 of these insurgents. It's just I don't know what to think about it, really. Well, I do know what to think about it, because it's a rewriting of the history of the 1930s. And we had Marley, wait, good boy, wait, when we had all the signs. And I suspect, Marley, no, I suspect that in the months to come we will see this insidious right-wing force gain more traction, gain more purchase, and become normal. And there's a terrifying clip, Marley, wait, floating around of Elon Musk giving what, Marley, no, I said wait, giving what can only be described as a Nazi salute. Wait, good boy, right, come on then. And I'm certain that he's absolutely sure he knew what he was doing. I might include that little clip.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk.
Truly terrifying. Yeah. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Trump and Musk, well, Musk especially, could buy himself certain political clout in the UK, get reform to a position whereby, and I'm already pretty sure of this, I think reform will form a coalition with the Conservatives and they will be the next government. There's no doubt in my mind that's what's going to happen. And they could then pardon Tommy Robinson and pardon all of the people who tried to burn that hotel down in Rotherham. And I used to think, and in a sense I still do, that if you don't do politics, politics will do you. But now what do I think is, well, if you throw enough money at it, you can buy the political decision you want. We know that to be the case. Hopefully the wind isn't going to ruin this last little bit of me wibbling on. But there we are, I might leave it there anyway. Because I might start making squeaky I'm in pain noises if I'm not careful. So there we have our little walk along Don. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm trying to do as many of these slightly different little walks as possible while I still can, but I think this now is it's about the limit of my abilities. I might see if I've got the opportunity to have my feet done, I might see if there's a way of getting the bones fused so that I can at least walk more comfortably and painlessly a little bit further. Then I just have to fix my motivation to do so. At the moment, that's my motivation to do so. So there you go. That's it. Until next time. Cheers.